Beyond the standard tales of famous kings and queens lies a far darker secret. A select few ancient Scottish dynasties have silently pulled the strings of power for centuries. No crowns grace their heads, yet their absolute rule is etched into the earth. Look to their massive estates stretching across countless wild acres. Behold the towering stone castles guarding Scotland's oldest secrets. They hold generational fortunes so massive the mind struggles to comprehend. Together, we are pulling back the heavy curtain on the 10 wealthiest dynasties in Scotland. We will trace the bloody origins of their wealth and their enduring modern influence. But first, a crucial historical distinction must be made. Modern headlines focus heavily on self-made billionaires when listing the wealthiest of Scottish figures. According to the 2025 Sunday Times Richest report, a Danish retail tycoon, Anders Holch Poulsen, claims the title of richest man. His massive net worth stands at £7.7 billion. Next comes the powerful Gordon family, owners of the William Grant & Sons whiskey empire, commanding £6.398 billion. Followed directly by author J.K. Rowling, with £945 million. These fortunes are indeed colossal, but they represent relatively new money. You and I will take a different path, chasing the ghosts of old money. We seek the noble houses whose riches are not locked in simple bank accounts, but forged in ancient lands, noble titles and bloodlines running through centuries of war. These rulers drew their true power directly from the physical soil of Scotland, and from royal decrees earned on blood-soaked battlefields, forging key alliances that redrew the British borders. Yet their vast wealth remains shrouded in secrecy, locked away in complex trusts and museum-grade private estates, eluding modern tax collectors, but retaining total influence. Prepare to enter a world of ruthless dukes, earls, and powerful clan chiefs as we document the 10 most formidable dynasties in Scottish history. We begin at number 10 with a bloodline born of Norse myth and Norman conquest, the legendary Clan Sinclair. Records show they descend from fierce Viking raiders who conquered Normandy, adopting their name from the French fiefdom of Saint-Clair-sur-Epte. They marched into Scotland alongside William the Conqueror during the 11th century, swiftly seizing dominion as the undisputed lords of the Northern Territories. Their unstoppable rise to power was built entirely on land. The Crown awarded them massive sweeps of Caithness and the strategic Orkney Islands, then still claimed by Norway, alongside the rich, fertile soil of Lothian near Edinburgh. This clever maneuvering gave them immense leverage in both the Norse and Scottish courts. They carved their authority deep with pure military strength. The Sinclairs dominated the brutal Scottish-Norwegian warfare and later served as critical commanders during the legendary Wars of Scottish Independence, forever securing their place among the most powerful clans of the realm. My research points to Henry Sinclair as their most mysterious historical figure, the 14th century first Earl of Orkney, who remains at the center of a highly contested legend. Ancient Zeno manuscripts reveal 15th century maps and letters detail how Earl Henry sailed across the Atlantic way back in 1398, 100 years before Christopher Columbus, and successfully landing on the shores of modern Nova Scotia and Massachusetts. Modern scholars might dismiss this grand tale, but we see the truth. It reveals the wild, seafaring drive that defined the early Sinclairs. Yet their most spectacular legacy is no myth. It stands as a masterpiece carved in stone. Rosslyn Chapel, founded in the mid-15th century by William Sinclair, the 3rd Earl of Orkney. This tiny sanctuary, resting near Edinburgh, stands as one of the most mysterious holy places on earth. Every single wall is packed with detailed stonework, showing biblical scenes, pagan green men, and cryptic symbols sparking endless conspiracy theories of the mysterious Knights Templar and the Holy Grail. Building Rosslyn in the 1400s demanded staggering wealth, proving just how incredibly powerful the Sinclair family really was. Fast forward to today, Malcolm Sinclair leads the family, the 20th Earl of Caithness, sitting in the House of Lords. While they now manage their fortunes through modern business and estates, the core of their power is still their historic land and name. Their massive holdings, including the legendary priceless Roslin Chapel, paired with their deep roots in ancestral Scottish soil, secure their spot among the most powerful and wealthy dynasties in Scotland. At number 9, we uncover a clan legendary for its brutal battlefield dominance. Their entire history is bound to the tragic romantic fight of the Jacobite rebels, the formidable Clan Fraser of Lovat. Carrying Norman blood, they first emerged in Scotland back in the 12th century, putting down roots in the lowlands before pushing up into the rugged highlands. They built their empire serving the crown and arranging brilliant strategic marriages, quickly becoming the undisputed rulers of the land surrounding the Bewley Firth. This family history is a bloody saga of warlords and ruthless politicians. They bled heavily during the wars of Scottish independence, while dominating the brutal, cutthroat politics of the Highland clans. But during the 18th century rebellions, you and I witnessed the Frasers burn their name deep into legendary folklore. The most notoriously famous figure from this wild era was Simon Fraser, the 11th Lord Lovat, better known as the Old Fox, highly complex and constantly changing sides. Lovat was an absolute master of political deception. He actually backed the royal government during the 1715 rebellion. Yet he pivoted to throw everything behind Bonnie Prince Charlie and championed the Jacobite uprising in 1745. His brave clan formed the backbone of that rebel Jacobite army, and at the brutal, tragic Battle of Culloden in 1746, the Frasers charged on the very front lines, taking absolutely devastating casualties. After the defeat, Simon Fraser was hunted down and tried for treason, ending up as the last man publicly beheaded at the infamous Tower of London. It was a massive public spectacle where his dark humor on the scaffold became legend. Despite the slaughter at Culloden and the systematic wiping out of Highland culture, the family survived. Their vast lands were seized, but eventually returned to them. They slowly rebuilt their dynasty by fighting bravely for the expanding British Empire, with generations of proud Frasers serving as elite commanders. The elite Lovat Scouts, this elite scout regiment, raised by the 15th Lord Lovat during the Second Boer War, went on to become one of Britain's most legendary units, famous for their brutal Highland grit. Now the legacy is led by Simon Fraser, the 16th Lord Lovat and 26th Clan Chief. Their magnificent home was Beaufort Castle, nestled in Bewley, but it was sold in the 1990s to cover steep inheritance taxes. A constant struggle for modern nobles, their entire fortune remains locked in massive Highland estates, run today as massive farming and hunting grounds. Although their exact bank balance remains secret, their epic ancestral territories and the massive global fame of the Fraser name, made legendary in recent years by the massive Outlander series, prove that their incredible empire was forged on centuries of blood, soil, and war. Now let us look at a family holding an unbelievable privilege in modern Britain: the sole right to command their very own private army. Meet the historic Murray clan, led by the Duke of Atholl. Their epic rise took them straight to the absolute peak of Scottish high society, defined by dangerous politics and absolute devotion to the exiled Stuart kings. The Murrays trace their bloodline back to a bold Flemish knight called Freskin, who was gifted massive territories in the wild Murray region during the 12th century by King David I. Their very name is born from Moray, which translates to sea settlement. Using brilliant dynastic marriages, the family grabbed huge territories all over Scotland, locking down rich lands in Tullibardine, Perthshire. One of their greatest warriors, the legendary Sir Andrew de Moray, stood shoulder to shoulder with William Wallace, fighting and dying for Scotland's freedom at the bloody Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297. Their ultimate ascent was sealed in 1629, when John Murray became the first Earl of Atholl. By 1703, The clan had reached the absolute peak of power when Queen Anne officially crowned their second Marquess as the very first Duke of Atholl, securing their spot as one of the most unstoppable dynasties in the entire kingdom. But this immense power would soon shatter under the weight of a brutal civil crisis, the Jacobite Rebellion. The Murray family tore itself apart in the conflict of 1745. One of the most genius generals fighting for the rebel Jacobite cause was Lord George Murray, the rebel younger son of the first Duke. Scholars still believe that if Lord George had held total control of the rebel army, the exiled Stuarts would have seized the crown. Yet while he fought for the rebels, his older brother, the second Duke, chose to support the British royal government. The ancestral home of these mighty dukes is the breathtaking Blair Castle, a striking white fortress in the wilds of Perthshire, standing as their stronghold for 7 centuries. And this legendary fortress still holds their most jaw-dropping modern legacy. Back in 1845, Queen Victoria granted the 6th Duke of Atholl the royal right to raise his own elite bodyguard force, the Atholl Highlanders. Today, they stand as the only legal private army left in Europe, a spectacular monument to the family's ancient power. Now the current 12th Duke of Atholl, a man named Bruce Murray, is a South African-born entrepreneur who leads this legendary regiment today. Their riches are truly staggering. Look beyond the magnificent Blair Castle, and their lands sprawl across 145,000 acres of Perthshire, dominating endless farms, vast forests, and massive tourist ventures. This entire empire is easily worth hundreds of millions of pounds today, solidifying the Murray bloodline as an absolute titan of historical and modern-day influence. Next up at number 7. A name forged in raw, unyielding power, absolute dominance, and bloody Highland controversies. Enter Clan Campbell, commanded by the fierce Duke of Argyll. For ages they reigned as Scotland's most formidable and cunning force-masters of political alignment, who stood fiercely loyal to the crown, with a reputation for brutal, ruthless efficiency. Their ancient ancestry winds back to the wild Britons of Strathclyde. Legends say their name stems from Gaelic roots, meaning a crooked mouth. They clawed their way to absolute dominance during the 13th century along the rugged west coast. Their rise was breathtakingly fast, fueled by their fierce, unbreakable allegiance to Robert the Bruce in the brutal wars of independence. Such loyalty yielded immense rewards of sweeping territory and key bloodlines, even wedding directly into the royal Bruce lineage, securing the Campbells a permanent place at the crown's right hand. As the medieval age raged on, their shadow grew longer. They claimed the title Earls of Argyll. This expansion sparked direct bloody clashes with rivals, most of all the proud MacDonalds. The blood feud between Campbell and MacDonald remains one of the most savage rivalries in historical memory, exploding into the horrific massacre of Glencoe back in 1692, when Campbell troops turned on their sleeping MacDonald hosts and butchered them. Though they claimed they only followed state orders, this betrayal forever branded their name with ultimate treachery in Highland legend. Yet this family possessed a survival instinct, always choosing winning factions. They backed the zealous Covenanters through the devastating wars of the Three Kingdoms and aligned with the British forces to crush Jacobite rebellions. So while other great clans fell to ash, the Campbells' dominion only expanded. Their majestic stronghold is Inverary Castle, a Gothic revival palace rising from the misty shores of Loch Fyne. Today, the bloodline is led by Torquil Campbell, the 13th Duke of Argyll. He doubles as a passionate champion of Scotch whisky, representing the giant Pernod Ricard group. Measuring their true fortune is challenging. Vast wealth is locked safely in protective trusts. But the official assets under this title, which include the fortress and legendary masterpieces of art, were valued at over $30 million more than 20 years ago, a sum that has surely exploded since. Whispers of the Duke's private net worth place it around $10 to $20 million, but their massive estate adds immense value. This potent mix of sprawling territory, priceless ancient heritage and ruthless modern business keeps the Campbells ruling as one of Scotland's ultimate dynasties. Now you and I travel south, to the blood-drenched borders where endless war birthed a dynasty of feared border raiders who climbed to the absolute peak of power. Behold the high aristocracy the Clan Kerr led by the Duke of Roxburgh. Their records show a masterclass in turning raw military power into lasting political wealth. My research traces their Norman roots back to the 12th century. Records suggest their name comes from the Old Norse word for marsh dweller. Early documents show the clans split into bitter rivals, the Ferniehirst and Cessford branches, who fought each other in bloody feuds almost as much as they raided England. History remembers the Kerrs as a brutal, highly skilled force on the battlefield. Strangely, historical accounts note their high rate of left-handedness, a trait that gave them a lethal edge. We can still see their castle staircases, built to spiral in the opposite direction, giving left-handed Kerr swordsmen a clear shot at right-handed foes. Even now, locals in the borders use the term Kerr-fisted to mean left-handed. Their transition from brutal raiders to high aristocrats started around the 16th and 17th centuries. In 1616, Sir Robert Kerr of Cessford secured the title of Earl of Roxburgh. Their bloody, long family feud was finally settled by marriage in 1631, when they backed the 1707 Act of Union joining Scotland and England. Their reward was grand. The fifth Earl became the Duke of Roxburgh, cementing their evolution from lawless border warlords to massive pillars of the British state. The crown jewel of their modern empire is Flaws Castle, the breathtaking home base of the Duke of Roxburgh. Sitting right on the River Tweed, this massive fortress is Scotland's largest inhabited castle. First built in the 1720s, later renovations turned it into this romantic, turreted palace. Today, Charles Innes Kerr, the 11th Duke, officially heads this ancient family dynasty. Their territory spans roughly 60,000 acres of stunning land across the borders and Cheviot Hills. Their total net worth is staggering, with records estimating it deep into the hundreds of millions of pounds. This empire was built on blood-soaked lands and centuries of incredibly shrewd political deals, run today like a modern corporation, showing how ancient aristocracy can thrive right here in the 21st century. Next, my investigation turns to a dynasty with a direct claim to the throne, deeply tied to the royal house of Stuart. The Clan Hamilton, under the command of the Duke of Hamilton and Brandon. Their records reveal royal blood and a terrifying proximity to supreme power, with a long legacy of commanding the most elite offices in Scotland. While their ancestry points to Normandy, their real rise to power erupted in the 14th century. Their ultimate turning point was backing Robert the Bruce during the brutal Wars of Independence. Following their triumph at Bannockburn, Walter Fitz-Gilbert, the very first to claim the legendary Hamilton name, was granted prime territories across Lanarkshire and the Lothians. Their connection to royalty was locked in the 15th century by James Hamilton when the First Lord married Princess Mary Stuart, daughter of King James II of Scotland. This alliance placed the Hamilton family straight in the line of succession. Throughout the 16th century, the family head held the dangerous title of heir presumptive, standing next in line to rule. This made them phenomenally powerful, but also threw them straight into lethal political crossfires, particularly when Mary, Queen of Scots, held the throne. Loyalty to the Stuart crown cost them dearly, time and again. Take James Hamilton, 1st Duke of Hamilton, a key confidant to King Charles I, who personally marched a Scottish army south to defend his king during the Civil War. But defeat came swift. Captured, executed for treason. In 1649, William, his brother and successor, met the exact same fate on the battlefield. Yet when the crown returned, the family reclaimed their stolen titles once more. Today, the Duke of Hamilton remains the supreme peer of Scotland, the highest-ranking noble beneath the crown itself. The current title holder is Alexander Douglas Hamilton, the 16th Duke of Hamilton. By birthright, he serves as keeper of the iconic Palace of Holyrood House, the official royal residence in Scottish lands. Their ancestral seat Lennox, Love House in East Lothian, guards centuries of priceless relics, including the haunting death mask of Mary, Queen of Scots, a fortune built on massive estates, prime real estate, and legendary art. While their historic palace and vast lands have slipped into the past, their deep wealth endures, securing their legacy as one of the ultimate dynasties of Scottish history. Now let us turn our investigation to number 4, moving away from lords of old to a family who redefined the very concept of modern Scottish old money. We uncover the Gordons' masters of the spirit's giant, William Grant and Sons. No noble titles decorate their names, but generations of wealth from the nation's premier liquid gold made them one of Scotland's richest dynasties ever. Our records show this empire began not with royalty, but with a single man's drive. Back in 1886, a simple herder named William Grant and bookkeeper from Dufton walked away from his steady job, chasing a dream to craft the valley's finest dram. Alongside his 9 children, he constructed his first distillery, Glenfiddich, stone by stone. On Christmas Day, 1887, the first drop poured. This was the spark of an empire. While corporate giants devoured rival distilleries over the decades, William Grant and Sons stood firm, remaining strictly family-owned for 5 generations. This was their secret. Their wealth was forged slowly, shielded by the Gordon family, the true descendants of William Grant. A modern dynasty in every sense, echoing the ancient lords who passed down their vast physical estates. In the 20th century, their fortunes reached astronomical heights. In 1963, they took a massive gamble launching Glenfiddich single malt beyond Scottish borders. Back then, single malts were just a quiet, local secret. That brilliant strategy literally created the modern category, turning Glenfiddich into a global titan. From that breakthrough they expanded, dominating with icons like the Balvenie and Grant's Blend. They conquered new ground, next acquiring the famous Hendrick's gin, igniting the massive craft gin revolution alongside Tullamore whiskey, DEW Irish whiskey. Today, the empire is chaired by Glen Gordon, the great-great-grandson of William Grant. Their accumulated fortune is truly staggering. Record books from the 2025 Sunday Times Richest reveal Glen Gordon and his dynasty hold a net worth of $6.398 billion, ranking them as Scotland's second wealthiest family. In just 12 months, their staggering fortune surged by another $779 million. Though their billions lie in modern stocks rather than ancient castles, the Gordon family still embodies the true spirit of a Scottish dynasty. Now for our number 3. We uncover a family blending ancient royal blood with one of the greatest industrial fortunes of the 19th century. Enter the Crichton Stuarts, Marquesses of Bute. Their archive reveals a tale of immense wealth, visionary architecture, and deep intellectual obsession. History shows they descend from John Stuart, an illegitimate son of Scotland's King Robert II, the historic Stuart monarch, born back in 1360. This secured their direct, though unofficial, bloodline straight to the Scottish crown. Awarded vast lands on the Isle of Bute, they became the official guardians of Rothesay Castle. For centuries, they remained respectable nobles, though far from being fabulously wealthy. But everything changed when they secured a series of highly strategic marriages. Their ancestral fortune truly exploded under the watch of the first Marquess of Bute, who wedded 2 wealthy heiresses, securing vast mineral-rich lands in the process. This swept prime South Wales territories directly into family hands. Then came his son, the visionary second Marquess of Bute, who forged those lands into unimaginable wealth. A brilliant industrialist, he realized the rich coal and iron below his Welsh estates desperately needed an open gateway to the global market. He risked his family's entire legacy to construct the massive Bute docks in Cardiff, turning a sleepy village into the world's premier coal-exporting hub. The daring gamble paid off spectacularly. His infant son, the third Marquess, inherited this colossal, glittering fortune at just 6 months old in 1848. instantly making him one of the wealthiest humans alive. Yet this heir was no industrial tycoon. Instead, he became a scholar, a deep mystic, and one of the most prolific architectural patrons in British history. He shocked Victorian high society by converting to Catholicism, before pouring his limitless riches into grand, fantastical building projects. He rebuilt Cardiff Castle and Castell Coch, turning them into breathtaking fairy tale Gothic palaces. But his crowning achievement was reconstructing his ancestral seat, Mount Stuart House, on the Isle of Bute, resurrecting it from ash into a stunning Victorian Gothic masterpiece. It was easily one of the most advanced residences of its era, holding the title of Scotland's very first home illuminated by electricity. Though their 19th century peak has faded, the family wealth remains truly enormous. Today, the dynasty is led by John Crichton Stuart, the 8th Marquess of Bute. Their private assets hold the priceless treasures inside Mount Stuart, vast lands across Bute and Ayrshire, and the legacy of a fortune forged through a rare mix of royal blood and industrial fire. Now at number 2, we encounter a family synonymous with colossal land ownership and one of the most disputed chapters in Scotland's history. Meet the Leveson Gower family, the Dukes of Sutherland. At their peak, they reigned as the largest private landowners in all Europe and were rightly dubbed the Leviathans of wealth. Let's trace how this legendary fortune was actually forged through tactical marriages. In time, the historic earldom of Sutherland fell to heiress Elizabeth Gordon. In 1785, she wed George Granville Leveson Gower, heir to a massive English estate and the highly profitable Bridgewater Canal. This union spawned an absolute financial titan. They ruled over 1.3 million Scottish acres, fueled by English industrial riches. By 1833, George was crowned the very first Duke of Sutherland, making him arguably the wealthiest man in all of Britain. Their London estate, Stafford House, was so unbelievably grand that Queen Victoria famously told the Duchess, "I have left my house for your palace." But this glittering empire remains eternally stained by the brutal Highland clearances. In the early 19th century, the rulers began a merciless reshaping of their massive northern estate. Deciding that massive sheep farming would yield far greater profits, they brutally drove tens of thousands of poor tenants directly from their ancestral homes. Homes were torched to ensure they could never return. These ruined families were dragged to tiny coastal plots to become fishermen, a brutal trade they were completely unprepared for. The Lords grandly labelled this atrocity as improvements, but for the victims, it meant agonizing suffering and forced exile. Today, the Sutherland clearances stand as a dark scar on Scottish history. A towering 100-foot monument of the Duke called the Manny still casts a shadow over his old lands, remaining a highly controversial symbol to this day. Over time, that colossal fortune slowly dissolved. By 1963, the title had shifted to an entirely different lineage. Their legendary art collection was auctioned off, and their massive territory has drastically shrunk. Yet the heavy legacy remains. Their ancestral home, Dunrobin Castle, resembles a lavish French chateau far more than a rugged Scottish fortress. Even with their power diminished, their lingering assets represent an empire built on steel legacy and the tragic forced transformation of the rugged Highlands. Now arriving at number 1, we uncover the dynasty holding the crown as the greatest private landowner in Scotland, the mighty Scott family, headed by the Duke of Buccleuch and Queensberry. Through the centuries, this bloodline gathered a staggering hoard of territory and grand estates, cementing them as the ultimate symbols of ancient aristocratic power. The Scots originated along the wild borders, rising as a formidable clan back in the 12th century. True to their roots, they were deadly warriors and infamous, ruthless raiders. By the 15th century, the clan chief could easily summon 1,000 armed warriors to crush his enemies. Their most legendary champion was Sir Walter Scott of Buccleuch, famously called Bold Buccleuch, a fearless fighter whose wild exploits became pure folklore, but their ultimate ascent to the high nobility was sealed by a direct tie to the crown. In 1663, Anne Scott, the powerful Countess of Buccleuch, wed James, the favoured, eldest illegitimate son of King Charles II. On that very day, they were crowned the brand new Duke and Duchess of Buccleuch. Records show that even when her duke faced the headsman for treason, Anne kept her title completely untouched. This royal union birthed the current line of dukes, setting off a wave of family fortune that absolutely defies belief. Standing at the top today is Richard Scott, the 10th Duke of Buccleuch. Operating through his family company, the Buccleuch Group, he rules over an absolute empire of soil and estates. Sure, he has sold off some chunks, but what remains is still staggeringly massive. My investigation reveals they still hold roughly 200,000 acres, crowning him as one of the ultimate landowners in the entire United Kingdom. This terrain stretches across legendary domains, including the massive Queensberry estate down in Dumfries and Galloway, where the grand sprawling Drumlanrig Castle stands proud, along with Bow Hill House near Selkirk. Their private art treasury is ranked among the absolute finest on earth, packed with priceless masterpieces from Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt and Holbein. Between the art, the buildings, and the endless territory, the total net worth becomes virtually impossible to count. Wealth lists pin his pocket money in the hundreds of millions, but they always leave out the real value of that ground. When you control more of Scotland's dirt than almost any other living soul, carry royal blood and guard treasures gathered over hundreds of years, the Scott family, those Dukes of Buccleuch, stand alone as Scotland's reigning, undisputed kings of old money. These dynasties offer us a haunting, permanent glimpse into the very soul of Scotland. If you and I, sharing this deep dive into old power, left you just as stunned as me, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to uncover more of history's darkest, most guarded secrets. I am dying to hear your own theories in the comment section below. Which of these powerful dynasties shocked you the most? And where on earth are you tuning in from? From bloodthirsty border clans to the greedy iron barons of the Victorian age, Scotland's elite class left behind an epic trail of absolute power, desperate ambition, and survival. Modern news feeds focus on New Age billionaires like Anders Holch Povesen, whose $7.7 billion hoard represents a flashy, modern brand of power. But the ancient dynasties on my list wield a far deeper level of control. Their real strength is not sitting in some bank vault. It is carved deep into the very hills of Scotland. You can feel it in fortress walls that have weathered hundreds of brutal years, in ancient titles signed by forgotten monarchs, and in dirt that spans across entire territories. They outlasted wars and bloody rebellions, dodging the chaotic shifts of the modern age by shifting their fortunes while guarding their bloodlines. These 10 powerful names prove one thing. New money is fast, but old money is cultivated through generations of calculated marriages and political schemes, wartime service, and flat-out ruthless moves. They remain living relics of a bygone era, proving to you and me that nothing outlasts the ultimate power of territory, blood, and destiny.